this is Christy at the West Regional Branch of the Mobile Public Library, and we're going to bring you some holiday hand lettering designs. Let's get started. All right, for our first embellishment, we're going to work on a flourish. Now, the flourish can be used for lots of different things, but we're going to turn it into a Christmas tree. We're going to start out by making a loop up here, just one simple loop. And then we're going to go into how we've done some flourishes where they look like you're trying to do the infinity symbol. So you can already see how you can turn that into a Christmas tree. Let's do it again. And you can lengthen them out, make them as skinny or as wide as you like. And again, you can add this to the bottom of a design whenever you create something, but you can go ahead and turn that right into a Christmas tree. So watch this. Leave some space for whatever your words would be. I'm just going to do quick Merry for us. And then you finish off with some wider little loops. You go all the way down, and then you can add a little trunk at the end. Put a little star on the top, and you have a quick Christmas tree. Let me show you where I've done this design with our Funaisuke pen, all in black. So you have a nice, clean, crisp look. You can add the star like I did. You could actually go through with red and put little balls on the tree. So you could just take that and make it your own in a lot of different ways. So it's a simple, easy flourish. All right, so let's look at another embellishment that you can use for lots of holiday designs. We're going to do pine boughs. So we're going to start out as though these are sprigs. And I'm going to use two different shades of green. I'm going to start out with a little lighter one. So you want to start with a curved line going whichever direction you need it on your design. So let's say you've made a card and you want it up here in the top right corner. You'll arch this way. Obviously, if you want it in the left corner, arch that way. So here we go. I'm going to make a nice line and do a separate one like this. And you're going to sort of feather out the lines. Do them as thick or thin as you like, but remember to keep a light touch, probably even lighter, truthfully, than you use when you're doing your thin strokes on your brush lettering. And you can go back if you like and go over the stem in brown or black to have some contrast. And some artists really get into whatever kind of pine or spruce it is, but we're just going for something abstract here. So I like to take the darker green and go over the stem just to make it pop a little bit, and then go over sort of randomly adding little darker strokes. Just gives it a little bit more dimension than if you stick to one color. And kind of make them longer. Alright, you could add berries here, you could add an actual pine cone, however you like. And that's just to give you a little sprig. Now if you want it to look like a swag that goes across, like when you hang garland at home, you want to do it horizontally. So let's do our line this way and this way. And you might remember from our fall harvest cards and designs, that's how we started out making our little wheat stalks. So it's going to be a similar motion, similar concept. Make sure to always curve in the direction that you want the design going. So we're curving to the right, so we want these lower little pine needles to look like they're curving in that direction. And just keep playing with it until you get it the right consistency, the right texture for your design. If you're working with metallics, you can always go back, maybe a silver or a gold, and sort of highlight on this, as you see in a lot of Christmas cards. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish this guy. And again, you can always add whatever you like in the middle. You can put some berries, some pine cones. I like to make it much broader than that and actually put the words in between so that the pine boughs kind of frame the words. There's a lot of ways you can incorporate these little pine boughs into your holiday designs. And we'll show you some at the end of the video, so stay tuned. Alright, so there's you a couple of different ways to do some pine boughs. So now let's look at making a poinsettia. So for the poinsettia, I have discovered that an easy way to get started is by drawing a sort of axis, right? So I've already drawn one, but I'll draw it for you. Just draw as though you're literally making an axis. Remember back in geometry, the class I hated? Then you can come down at an angle like this, because you're ultimately going to make these petals in a star shape, and you want them to be approximately the same size to the best of your ability. We're going to make them a little teardrop shape, okay? So curve it, bring it on up like this. And so make sure, again, they're roughly the same size and shape. And when you get this drawn, it's going to look a little bit like a starfish that's made out of leaves, sort of. That's exactly what we want it to look like. If you're like me, you may have to turn it to get this guy over here. So there we go. Okay, now the important thing about a design like this is you definitely want to draw it, but then you want to erase it. Take a light touch with it so that you still have some of the pencil on there, enough to see your design, but yet not so much that it's going to be difficult to go back and erase after you color it. That makes it a little tricky. So see, it's just about gone, but I can still see it. We're going to take our red marker and just trace over those lines. Again, you want to keep kind of a teardrop shape. And this winds up being a really fun, cute one. Alright, now usually, of course, the middle is yellow, but I'm just going to stick to red. And just make one large dot and several small ones. Go ahead and let's fill those in. And because our poinsettias actually, the petals start out really as leaves, and they're green and they turn red. So we're going to pop a little green in there in a second. So now we have all our pretty red. So in between each of the red petals, we're going to do a little green. You want it to be roughly the same shape, but not the same size. So just a tiny little guy in there. And just kind of squeeze them in. And again, you could sort of balance this, maybe one at the top, one at the bottom, one at either side. So hang in there. We're going to show you some more of these poinsettias later. Alright, and now we're going to go for holly. So if you're like me, I started drawing holly probably in grade school. But we're going to show you 3 different ways to do holly today. Alright, so I've already pre-drawn it, but I'll show you how to get these going. So for the holly, of course, you draw just little small circles for the berries, roughly the same size. Don't fret about it. It's sitting for a botanical. All right, and then for our holly leaves, of course, you want that really sharp, distinct look. So you draw a curve, make that good point, curve it in. Always keeping in mind those little prickles that will stick you. All right. Just that easy to make our holly. So we're going to do like we did before though, because this is pretty dark. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of erasing on here so it doesn't bleed through when we go over it with a marker. And the first one we're going to do what I call flat, meaning it doesn't have any shading really on the leaves. We will on the berries, but leaves are going to be pretty much one shade of green. So we're going to start with the light guy. Begin to trace over them. And don't worry if you get outside the lines, just adapt it. It's fine. So curve and point, point. All right, so we're gonna do literally just like you're a kid. Just have fun and color this in. You can do it whichever way you want the strokes to look. I try to keep mine predominantly going the same direction. So if you want to call that horizontal, or for the bottom one, probably be vertical. But just keep them all mostly in the same direction. Okay, and when you get that guy done, all you want to do is you want to go back and take your darker one, and we're going to make the veins. So we know that that holly, and you can already see sort of that there with the strokes I made. Holly has that little vein down the middle, and then it has those veins that go to the side that give it its distinctive characteristic. You can even add a few more if you like. Okay, so that's our first way. Then we're going to take and do in our berries. And those are pretty simple. Just go round and round, keep it in that shape. That's where you don't want to do any type of strokes, just round in a circle. Now I'm going to take a little darker red. We're going to do just a tiny bit of shading, just as though you were doing a backwards C. Just a little bit there. Okay. Alright, and for time's sake, we're just going to do one leaf. That gives you an idea of how to do that. Then on the next one, we are going to do some shading. So same thing. Start just like you would. Like you're going to fill it in. Alright, and notice how I went ahead and split that guy down the middle. Even though I'm going to do darker on the outside, I'm still just going to go ahead and fill it in with both. Alright, so let's fill in the top half, make a line down the middle, and just shade this. Just gives it a little bit of dimension, a little bit of contrast. Notice that there's not an enormous difference in those two shades of green. So when you do the top leaf, you're going to do up here. Always keep it on the same side. Okay, we're going to do the berries the exact same way. Remember, circle, circle, circle. Okay, give it that little shading, and we're going to follow, since the darker's here, we want the darker on the top of the berries. Always be consistent so it gives it a clean look. Alright, and for the last one, we are going to do something really different we have not done before. I'm going to take this little card. All I did was take some cardstock and laminate it. And so we're going to take our two greens, and we're going to sort of mix them here. And this basically becomes a palette for you. Alright, so we're going to mix all those, and then we're going to go ahead and remember to erase a little bit. What we're going to create with this is more of a watercolor look. Now you are going to need a special pen for this technique, and what it's called is a blender pen. You can find it separate, or sometimes it comes in sets of brush pens from Tombow. So what you're going to do, this is completely clear, but you are going to dip it in here and blend it together. And for those of you who've always wanted to try your hand at watercolor but were intimidated, this might be a good way to do that, because you will get that really soft look, as though we've done a watercolor painting instead of just using markers. It's a pretty neat trick. You just keep going back and rubbing it through and blending. And notice how it gets lighter. And so you want to make sure you get those strokes that wind up giving it that look of a holly leaf. And you can go lighter or darker with it. And it does squeak at us a little bit. You can do short little strokes like I'm doing. But you can already see, if you look at that versus the others, the difference in the way that the ink comes out. Just gives it a softer look. Alright, and the way to clean this is to just take a scrap piece of paper and rub it across it. Just keep rubbing it until it comes completely clear again. And then now we're going to do a little bit of red for our berries. So we're going to put both shades of red on here. Alright. And then remember to always go in that circular motion. And then you can go back later with a little darker color to give it a little more shading. But that's a new fun technique I hope you all will enjoy. So stay tuned for the next one and we will see how to implement these. As promised, here are some samples of projects that include the embellishments from this video. Here's a tree made from the flourishes. And here is one that includes pretty much all of those embellishments. We'll see if in the future if we can't tackle this banner. And then the last one, Home for the Holidays, has a pretty intricate border up there. But to see if you can't try that when you do this. Stay tuned for our New Year's projects and thanks so much for watching.